Hello, I'm at Millside for today's masterclass, a truly rural glamping experience in a quiet, picturesque spot in the Lincolnshire countryside. The luxury ensuite glamping cabins are only 10 minutes from the A1 and Grantham railway station, so just a 1-hour train journey from London or York, and it's close to many visitor attractions, including the Viking Way. My name is Liz Blount, and today I'm presenting session 1 of 3 on recruitment. So we're going to be looking a little bit more about what recruitment involves, why it's important for your business, and how you can make it work for you. So I'm going to be taking you through the recruitment life cycle. So starting with preparing to recruit, then looking at sourcing and selecting candidates, hiring our preferred candidate, and then bringing them on board with your organisation. I don't know about you, but when I'm doing any decorating at home, I hate the preparation stage. I just want to get on and splash the paint colour on the walls, and I get very frustrated having to do all the sanding and filling and making the surface look good. But I know from watching the professionals do it that that's the best way to get a good finished result. And I'm afraid for recruitment, the same is true. Although you might be in a rush to get on and get somebody else in place, we really need to spend a little bit of time here making sure that you know exactly what you want and what you need. So we need to take some time to consider what you really need this person to do and making sure that your job description and your person specification reflect that. Of course, you need to think about a budget as well, and then all of that needs to go together to make a great advert to attract people to come and work for your business. So once we've prepared, then we can move on to sourcing candidates. In the old days, this maybe meant just putting an advert in the local newspaper or maybe a specialist publication, depending on your type of organisation, or maybe putting a sign in the window. And of course, you can still do all of those things. But nowadays, it looks a little bit different. Most people go looking for jobs on job boards. We've got sites such as Monster, Indeed. People will go on those to find jobs in their area or in the type of work that they're interested in. So it's worth spending some time having a look at those yourself to see the adverts that are on there and the type of people that they're attracting. You can also use advertising agencies, of course, and that might be helpful, particularly if you do need somebody quickly. They might already have someone on their books who can start work for you. But of course, there is a cost attached to that. There's some alternative options as well, which can be really useful in a market where it's difficult to attract candidates. And we're going to be looking a bit more about those in one of the later videos. So we've put our advert out there and we've got some candidates interested. And now we're going to screen them. This is really just an initial stage of selecting to try and weed out anybody that really isn't going to work for this job for your business. So you need to be clear about how you're going to make that decision. And this is really just taking into account what's essential for you. It might be that there's certain qualifications, for example, that you need someone to have. Maybe if they're going to be working in your kitchen, they need to have certain qualifications. Maybe they're going to be working as a lifeguard, whatever it is, that someone just couldn't do that job if they don't have that skill, qualification, ability. This is what you're looking to take out at this stage. You might have asked them to fill in an application form. They've maybe sent in a CV with a letter expressing their interest in the job. Some companies like to use telephone screening, and that can be really helpful if you've got a lot of applicants that you're trying to sift through. You might even want to do some initial testing at this stage if there are those essential skills that we've talked about. Be careful you don't over-screen though. What you're trying to do is find some great candidates to go forward to the next stage, maybe half a dozen that you're going to follow up in more detail. Now we move on to the selecting stage. If you've ever been for a job, it's probably involved having an interview. That's what most of us are familiar with when we are applying for a job. However, interviews do have low validity. They're not always the best predictor of who's going to be the best employee for you. You can make them better. Think really carefully about the questions you're asking. Make sure that they relate to the job that the person's coming for. Ask them really specific questions about the skills they need and what experience they've had before. We're going to be talking in more detail about how you can make interviews better in one of the later videos. Another way to make interviews better is to run other things alongside them. You might want to give somebody a test to do. Perhaps you might want to ask them in to come and do a trial shift. For example, if they're coming to work behind the bar, could they come in for an hour and do that. You might want them to do a presentation. If a large part of their job is going to involve that kind of relation to people, doing customer service, maybe doing little talks, you might want to see them in action. You could also ask them to work as a group if that's going to be important, either getting the applicants to all work together or maybe getting each one to work with your existing employees so you can see how they fit into the team. Sometimes we join several of these things together and then we call it an assessment centre. Do bear in mind what you're asking of the people and how relevant that is for the job they're coming to. If someone's coming for a senior level position and they're going to be with you for a long time, then they might well be willing to spend a whole day with you, and it might be in their interest to find out more about the organisation. But if someone's only coming to work part-time for a few months, then we need to be reasonable in what we're asking them to do. So, we've gone through our different selection methods, and hopefully you've found somebody that you think has got the skills that you need and is going to fit in well at your organisation. Hooray! So we can offer them a job. Hopefully they'll accept that. Now you move on to doing some checks. You need to make sure that they've got the right to work in the UK. And depending on what you're asking them to do, you might want to do things like DBS checks. If the person's going to be working with children a lot, for example, that's something you'll want to look into. And then you need to issue them with the contract of employment to give them all the essential details they need about coming to work for you. Things like their hours, their pay, their leave. All the things like that they need to do. Then we move on to what we call the onboarding stage. Now, it's tempting to think that you've got everything done by now, you've done all the difficult recruiting, but this final stage of the cycle is really important. You've gone to all this trouble to make a really good hire, so it's really important that you follow through with this final stage of bringing them into the organisation. We can break this down into 4 mini stages within it. So there's pre-onboarding, and this really covers everything from when you've seen them at interview and made the offer to the day they start working for you. It's important to make sure that you're communicating well at this stage. This is your opportunity to set the standards you want and expectations around how that's going to work. So if communication is important to you, make sure you're role modelling that during this pre-onboarding stage. It can also be really reassuring for candidates if they get the information they need from you. Then they're going to come. Day 1, welcome and orientation. You'll have certain information about the business or maybe practical training that you need them to do, but make sure you include the soft information as well. You'd be surprised how many people have an awful first day because nobody actually shows them where the toilet is or where they can go and get lunch with everyone else. You might have some role-specific training that they're going to be doing over a few weeks or even months. And then finally, you're going to transition them so they become a regular employee and they feel part of the team. There's one more stage that we didn't see in that life cycle at the start, and that's retention. As I've just said, it takes quite a lot of effort to recruit a good employee. So once you've got them, it's really important that you do your best to hold on to them. You might want to look at some of the other videos in this series about training and development or about personnel management in general for some tips on how to do this. That's the end of session 1 of 3 on recruitment, where we've taken you through the recruitment cycle. I hope you found the session both interesting and useful. Please go to business.visitlincolnshire.com for more bite-sized videos and information.